The thing about Tom, I mean, obviously, um, very much the antithesis of a cartoon character, but when the British Bulldogs go to the WWF, which is how so many people will have been introduced to the Dynamite Kid, obviously the Vince McMahon stamp goes onto them, and they do become these larger than life characters with the sequins and the cape and the dog and everything that went into that package. And it never looked like Dynamite was particularly comfortable in that position with those kind of promos and being in that spotlight. It felt like it looked as a fan like all he ever really wanted to do was just go out and work a match and put on the best match in the show. Did you have conversations with him about the kind of creatively what he was moved into when he went to the WWF?
Well, when he first went, he was the only one that Vince wanted.
Right.
And when he first went, we had two giant capes made because Vince said he wanted a Dynamite Kid cape, so it was to the floor. We had a purple lame one and then a red lame with it had a vest built into it. But he didn't mind it because it was pretty light. But he hated being on the road without his family. Like Stampede Wrestling, once you survive the territory, because it was one of the hardest territories to do. Like you were driving, I think you had one day off. You had Sunday off. That was it. Some of the shows were really close, but I mean, you were getting in the van at 10 in the morning to wrestle at 7 at night in Regina, Saskatchewan, like just a straight road. Everybody like on Fred Flintstone. I don't know if you guys get the Flintstones over there, but we have the same tree go by.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Davey's like, where's the castles? I was like, there's no castles here, Davey. Just a little bush once in a while. But anyway, you'd wrestle and then you'd come home, straight home, and it was 6 in the morning and you go to bed and get up and you got to go wrestle again. You got to be at the Mohawk at 3:00 to make another show, probably closer by. But it was tough, those road trips.
Yeah. And I guess also, I mean, a lot of the guys in Stampede in the kind of around about 1984 could start to see where things were going. I mean, it happened so quickly in terms of Vince McMahon's dominance, but you could see those early signs that wrestling was changing, couldn't you?
So my point about the road trip though is they did things to just to gel and to have fun, and sometimes the pranks got a little crazy, but he missed that when he went to New York. It was he knew some people from Japan, but there wasn't that same like whole van of heel wrestlers like singing on top of Old Smoky and drinking beers, and he loved being in the heel van. So then he got together with Davey and said, I don't want to work for New York. Let's go to Japan. Let's go. And they went to Japan, and then Vince came there because Vince had seen Tom. We drove down to the States, like through Sweetgrass to Portland, so Tom could fly to New York so that he wouldn't get stopped at the border. Every time he tried to go from Calgary to Mexico or, somewhere in the States, somebody would phone and say that he was, going to be wrestling somewhere. Wow. So we drove down there, and he's like, oh, take my wrestling things out of my bag. And he put them in Duke Myers, and his wife are the people who drove us. So we put his wrestling gear in there in Duke's bag in case customs went through our bags. And then when he got to New York, he didn't have his wrestling gear. And you could see Tom wrestling Tiger Mask in Madison Square Gardens, and Vince McMahon sees him for the first time, and he's wearing...
Wasn't it Junkyard Dogs gear?
It was Special Delivery Jones.
Wow.
It was S.T. Jones.
Oh. The red trunks?
The red trunks. And he goes, luckily, S.D. lives in the territory, and he worked on those shows quite often. So he borrowed his trunks. All he had was his wrestling boots and his wraps. So, yeah, he was like, oh, my big debut, Madison Square Gardens, and I had to borrow someone's fucking trunks.
That's a crazy world of wrestling, isn't it?
Still made it.
So anyway, so when he went to New York on his own, Vince had already, and you can hear, if you watch that match, Vince McMahon goes, "I've never seen a Dynamite Kid." So then he saw him. So he always remembered him. So when he was the owner of WWF, he knew who Tom was. So he wanted him bad. And then Tom did not like, and plus Tom was like working opening matches, which is fine, but he wasn't used to that. And he was like, I'm getting $50. And he was like, I went all that way and they're only giving me $50. And back then you had to pay for your own transportation, your own hotel, your food. You would only, have it as a tax write-off. So he's like, I'm going to Japan. I'm going to JP, me. And then that's when, Vince flew there to convince them to come to him.